We don't elect people in one part of the state to have veto power over what the entire state decides on these important issues. The Constitution of Florida has vested the veto power in the governor, not in individual state attorneys. The prosecutor, state attorney for this judicial circuit, Andrew Warren, has put himself publicly above the law. When you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, you must take care that our laws are faithfully executed. No individual prosecutor puts himself above the law. It warrants the suspension and eventual removal of office.
Let's welcome to the show, The Hill's Kristin Tate. Kristin, it's a pleasure having you back on. It's good to see you.
Great to be with you, Liz.
You know, Kristin, he's setting an example. Will other governors follow? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he suspended this liberal state attorney, Andrew Warren, because he's basically hijacking and setting aside the state legislature, the voters. It wasn't just about refusing to enforce abortion restrictions. He was picking and choosing what state laws to enforce. He put himself above the law and above voters.
Exactly. And of course, Ron DeSantis did the right thing here. Obviously, the state attorney deserved to be suspended if he's not willing to do his job by enforcing the law. And what makes this story so significant in my mind is that far too many Republicans are too weak or cowardly to take the kinds of actions that DeSantis just took. There are many red state governors that basically sit back and do nothing as these liberal George Soros funded state attorneys, just like you said, pick and choose which laws they want to follow and which ones they don't want to enforce. In fact, a couple of days ago, 80 elected prosecutors, mostly attorneys general and district attorneys, signed a letter vowing not to enforce anti-abortion laws. Many of these prosecutors come from red states like Texas and Georgia. So the big question here is, why aren't governors like Brian Kemp or Greg Abbott doing the same thing that Ron DeSantis just did?
You know, the governor also used colorful language. He said, quote, "We are not going to allow this pathogen nationwide of ignoring the law get a foothold in the state of Florida." I mean, we see it here in New York. We see it and also in California. You know, voters expect the law to be upheld, and then it's not. I mean, that's the disarray. I mean, these arrogant, the vanity projects of these DAs and state attorneys go in thinking that they create the law. They don't. The legislature does. It's basically going back to first principles.
It's absolutely infuriating, and good for Ron DeSantis for doing something about it. In my mind, this is just another example of why DeSantis is the obvious pick for Republicans in 2024, because he really is the only major Republican with a national platform who's using the power he has been given to put in place conservative values and policies and to just frankly uphold the law. He was one of the only governors who kept his state open during COVID. People could actually go to school and keep their businesses and go to work. And Florida's doing so well because of his leadership. People are moving there in record numbers from these liberal bastions like California and New York. In fact, last year, for every 100 people who moved out of Florida, 210 people moved in. So we need more leaders on the right and frankly on the left too, like Ron DeSantis, with the guts to actually use the power they've been given to put in place policies that work for their citizens.
What did you think of Governor DeSantis saying no to going on The View, the TV show The View?
I totally support that. It's a waste of time. Those women are not interested in any kind of productive conversation or the truth. So good for him.
You know, you're right that, you know, Florida has a powerful economy. It never shut down during the pandemic, but Joy Behar called DeSantis, quote, homicidal. And then now you have Democrat California Governor Gavin Newsom, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker going after DeSantis. So that's what's been happening as well.
Yeah, they're afraid of him. They know that he's a fighter. And the other thing that's really interesting about DeSantis is he's not afraid to get into the culture wars. For so long, since the 90s, Republicans have always said, let's avoid the cultural issues and focus on basically marginal tax cuts. DeSantis has really shown that that's an outdated way of thinking. He's gotten so popular in part because he's not afraid to take on these issues. He's banned CRT in Florida public schools. He's banned radical gender ideology. These are all things that Republican voters want.
Kristin Tate, come back soon. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Sure.
Always a pleasure.
It's same here.